Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and hi guys, we are from group 5 are going to present chapter 8 entitled Negotiating via Information Technology. The first presenter will be me myself, Siti Nazima binti Ahmad, and then Muhammad Hafizuddin bin Abdul Halim, then Syafiqah Suhada binti Sahir, and the last presenter is Siti Hazimah binti M. Juni. We are going to discuss place-time model of social interaction, information technology and its effect on social behavior, and strategies for enhancing technology-mediated negotiations. The place-time model is based on the options that teams have when working across different locations and time. So there are 4 modes of place-time model. The first one goes to face-to-face communication, same time, different place, different time, same place, and different time, different place. So these are the differences of place-time model to easily differentiate the 4 of them. Let's go to the first one. Face-to-face negotiation is the clear preference of most negotiators. Face-to-face contact is crucial in the initiation of relationship and collaboration. Face-to-face negotiations are particularly important when negotiators meet for the first time. Negotiators are more cooperative when interacting face-to-face than over the telephones. Face-to-face communications foster the development of interpersonal synchrony and rapport, and thus leads to more trusting and cooperative behavior. Face-to-face negotiators reach more integrative or win-win outcomes than email or telephone negotiation. The incidence and frequency of face-to-face communication is determined by how closely people are located to one another. For example, employees who work in the same office or on the same floor communicate much more frequently than those located on different floors or in different buildings. Face-to-face communication is easier, and many negotiations occurs from chance encounter, which almost never happen in any mood, but face-to-face because perceived effort. Negotiations of opportunity are very important for long-term business success. People rely on non-verbal signals to help them conduct social interactions. Leaders, as well as negotiators, use non-verbal cues to convey messages in their communications. Important behavioral, cognitive, and emotional processes are set into motion when people meet face-to-face. Face-to-face negotiations allow people to develop rapport, the feeling of being in synchronized or empathy with another person. Non-verbal, like body orientation, gesture, eye contact, head nodding, and paraverbal behaviors are key to building rapport. When the person we are negotiating with sit at a greater distance and have indirect body orientation, like backward lean and cross arm and avoid eye contact, we feel less rapport than when the same person sits with a forward lean, an open body posture and maintain steady eye contact. However, there also appear to be gender differences, such as when females negotiate, their agreements are of higher quality when they have visual contact. The opposite goes to the males, who reach better agreement in absence of visual contact. More communication channels increase the win-win performance of negotiators with a neutral orientation, but hurt the performance of negotiators who have a non-cooperative orientation. The second mode of place-time model is the same time, different place mode, in which people negotiate in real time but are not physically in the same place. Is often the alternative to face-to-face negotiations. The most common means is via telephones. Telephone tag is different time and different place. Video conferencing is another example. When negotiators are not face-to-face, they reach more integrative agreements when they believe that the other party is physically far away, for example, several thousand feet away, rather than nearby. Apparently, when a negotiator feels remote, their perspective is more broad. Face-to-face communication involves the richest form of communication with several types of information available: visual, auditory, and tactile. In phone conversation, people lack facial clues, such as pauses, mutual gaze, another person's nonverbal response to what is being said, like looking away, rolling their eyes, shaking or nodding their head. People act differently in the absence of important cues. In addition to our own behavior changing, when we are on the phone as compared to face, we are affected by the phone conversation of others around us. In fact, it is nearly impossible to be in an environment where we are not surrounded by others conducting their phone calls. As it turns out, people are more distracted when they overhear a one-sided cell phone conversation than an in-person chat between two people. Next, we identify 4 key challenges to same-time, different-place negotiations. The first key challenge is that negotiators lose informal communication. Probably the most limiting aspect of same-time, different-place negotiation is the inability to chat informally in the hall or inside office. The impromptu and casual conversation that negotiators have in the hallway outside an informal meeting room, by a water cooler, or walking back from lunch are often where the most difficult problems are solved and the most important interpersonal issues are addressed. Many companies clearly realize that the informal communication that occurs in their organization is what is most important and most critical. They are doing something about it. Next is lost opportunity. Negotiations do not occur just when people are in disagreement and bargaining over scarce resources. In fact, many negotiations are negotiations of opportunity, which is something like entrepreneurial joint ventures, because they are not planned. Negotiations of opportunity usually occur during informal or chance encounters. Another negative impact of physical separation is the absence of feedback. Greater distance tend to block the corrective feedback loops provided in the face-to-face negotiations. One manager contrasted how employees who work in his home office negotiated with him compared to employees 15 kilometers away. Engineers in the home office would drop by and catch him in the hall or at lunch. "I heard you were planning to change Project X." They would say, "Let me tell you why that would be stupid." So the manager would listen to their points and clarify some details. In contrast, employees at the remote site would greet his weekly visit with formally prepared objection, which took much longer to discuss and were rarely resolved as completely as the more informal hallway discussion. In short, negotiators interacting remotely do not get the coincidental chances to detect and correct problem on a casual basis. The last one is negotiating timing. Conflicts are expressed, recognized, and addressed more quickly if negotiators work in close proximity. A manager can spot a problem and cut it off immediately if they work near their employees. When people are physically separated, the issues are more likely to get unresolved. Distance is not always a liability for negotiators. The formality of a scheduled phone meeting may force parties to better prepare for the negotiations. Distance also creates a buffer zone between parties, meaning it might be a good thing if one party does not see the other rolling their eyes. Moreover, people are more likely to assume that the behavior of task group members is driven by common goals for physically distant group rather than near group.
Okay, next we move to the different time, same place. In the different time, same place mode, the negotiators interact asynchronously but have access to the same physical document or space. An example might be shift workers who pick up the task left for them by the previous shift, and for another example will be the two collaborators working on the same electronic document. When the one college finishes and then give the text to a partner who further edit and develop it. The next one is different place, different time. In the different place, different time model, negotiators communicate asynchronously in different place. The most type of different place, different time communication is email. For example, the average office worker spends 650 hours a year, or 28% of their working hours reading and writing email. For this reason, some people believe that they are being held captive by the internet. Consequently, some business people have gone great length to unplug ragging from self-imposed digital detox program to treat of divorce from their spouse. Negotiating in a different time and place can be beneficial to some. For example, women consistently do better when they negotiate virtually. In one simulation, people negotiate the purchase of a car either face-to-face or online, by phone or by video. Women were more assertive when they were handling face-to-face. Virtual negotiation with car dealer eliminate status maker and gender-based and reduce pressure on the woman to make a purchase decision or to demonstrate socially gender-appreciated behavior when negotiating. Virtual setting have the benefit of upsetting established hierarchy, conferring more favorable outcome on those with less power. I has identified four key ways that affect the ability of people to negotiate via email. The first one is temporal synchrony bias. The temporal synchrony bias is the tendency for negotiators to behave as if they are communicating synchronously when in fact they are not. One of the aspects of negotiation that people like is the ability to make proposal and counter-offer, almost in tennis game-like fashion. However, in negotiation disrupt the natural rhythm of face-to-face negotiation. There is less turn-taking in negotiation conduct via email than in face-to-face negotiation. Conventional turn-taking makes the process of negotiation seem smooth and more natural, but it also serves an important information function. It allows people to correct misunderstanding immediately. In the face-to-face interaction, sender and receiver typically engage in the process of rapid correction of information. However, in e-negotiation, negotiators are faced with the mystery task of interpreting imperfect communication without the opportunity for clarification. Thus, e-negotiators are forced to make more assumptions than face-to-face negotiators. Indeed, e-negotiators ask fewer clarifying questions than do face-to-face negotiators. For the example, the negotiator consider other parties want to the same thing as desired during the negotiate. The second one is exit bias. The exit bias refers to the perception that negotiation is unstable and should be terminated. In contrast, the continuous norm refers to the belief that the negotiation are worth continuing. Lack of visual information and increasing spatial distance reduce anticipation of relation and may prompt negotiator to exit from the current negotiation. Both visual anonymity and remote distance inhibit the activation of the continuation norm and lead negotiator to terminate the current negotiation. For example, the negotiator thinks that the negotiation could not move forward and he felt unstable and difficult to get the desired answer. The third one is Fleming bias. The Fleming bias is the tendency for negotiators to adopt an adversarial negotiation style when communicating via email, whereas the same negotiator might use a positive emotional style in a face-to-face interaction. Indeed, people are more likely to engage in counter-normative social behavior when interacting via email. Rude, impulsive behaviors such as flaming increase when people interact through email, in part because people pay more attention to the content of the message and less attention to the style of the message. For example, the bad news is conveyed to superior with less delay through email than in face-to-face encounter. In a direct comparison of face-to-face negotiation versus in-negotiation, people negotiating via email were more likely to negatively confront one another. One investigation of flaming suggests that people are 8 times more likely to flame in e-communication than in the face-to-face communication. Similarly, evaluators giving performance appraisal offer more negative feedback to peers when using email than when using traditional paper form methods. Conversely, people in face-to-face negotiation often follow a politeness ritual which set the stage for trust and rapport. For example, person Z likely to engage in counter-normative social behavior like angry, rude, and when he communicates with person B via email. And the last one is sinister attribution bias. Sinister attribution bias, people often misattribute the behavior of others to their underlying character traits while ignoring the influence of temporary situation factor. The sinister attribution bias refers to the tendency for e-communication to ascribe diabolical intention to the other party. The sinister attribution error is the tendency for people to attribute malevolent motive to people they don't know who represent the out of group. Attributing sinister motive to out-group member is especially prevalent in e-communication in which the absence of social cues lead to feeling of social isolation and distance. Indeed, e-negotiators are more likely to suspect the other party of lying or deceiving them, relative to negotiator interact face-to-face. Yet, e-negotiator in this situation provide no factual basis to fuel the increased suspicion of the other party. For example, if a person walking down to the hallway and B person completely ignore the person A, so that means the person A already don't like the person B. The sinister attribution bias means that the person A likely attributes sinister motive to person B, and the person A said that the person B is so arrogant.
Hello, I'm Shafika Shuhada binti Sahir and I will continue this presentation. Information technology has a very strong impact on the social behavior in addition to influencing the negotiated result. To be successful negotiator must understand how their own behavior is affected by the technology. There are 8 effects of information technology on social behavior. That the first one is trust, deception, status and power, social network, risk taking, rapport and social norms, paranoid, and the last one is intergenerational negotiation. So, let's go to the next slide and I will elaborate one by one. The first effect of information technology on social behavior is trust. People who negotiate online tend to have a lower level of trust in one another than those who negotiate by the face-to-face. Negotiators must have a different expectation for the electronic bargaining than they will for the face-to-face negotiation due to the low level of trust they have for one another before the negotiation. And expressly, that online negotiation report the lower level of satisfaction with their performance, lower level of confidence in their ability of communication, and the lower level of desire for the future interaction with the other side while negotiation. The second effect is deception. Regardless of whether they think their deception will be exposed, people are more likely to lie and deceive others when they are not face to face, such as deception in the computer-mediated group negotiation and decision making is the considerable more often than expected. For example, when communicating by the email rather than pen and paper, people are more willing to lie and feel more justified by doing so. According to the moral detachment theory, people are more inclined to mispresent themselves and deceive others when they are not face to face, regardless of whether they think the lie will be detected. And surprisingly, those that are better at making decisions tend to be more successful at hiding their identity. Next is status and power, which is the weak get strong. Status predict the domination. When negotiators interact via the information technology, power and status differences are minimized. People who would normally not approach others in person are much more likely to initiate the email exchange. This is because traditional status cues such as position and title are not as obvious in the email. It is often impossible to tell whether you are communicating with a president or a clerk on the email because addresses are often shortened and may be difficult to comprehend. In the other hand, email acts as an equalizer because it is difficult for the high-status pupil to dominate the discussion. The absence of this pupil could lead pupil to respond more openly and less hesitantly than in face-to-face interaction. Next is a social network. In traditional face-to-face organization, social networks are determined by who talk to whom. But in new, in settled organizations, social networks are determined by who communicate with whom via the technology. Computerized interaction increase the resources of low network people that some company need to rely on electronic modes of communication that rely on the email and employee within the company to form connection with each other on the basis of no physical contact. The incentive for the taking the time to assess someone who is dealing with the problem and is located in a different part of the world are quite minuscule. Besides that is risk-taking. Decision maker has a tendency to be risk-averse for the change and risk-taking for the losses. This is known as the farming effects. Groups make riskier decisions than the individuals. That paradoxically, electronical communicating groups are risk-taking for both change and losses. Furthermore, executives are just as confident of their decision whether they are made through the electronic communication or face-to-face communication. For example, in comparison to people negotiating face-to-face by email or through the combination of both, people who use only email risk more emphasis. Next is rapport and social norms. Building trust and rapport is critical for negotiation success. The greater the face-to-face contact between the negotiator and the greater the rapport, the more integrative the outcome are likely to be. Establishing a rapport is more challenging when using a poor medium of communication. In a stimulating negotiation, some negotiators were instructed to stand side by side or face to face. In a different study, contrast between the face-to-face video conference and audio-only negotiation interaction were made. Negotiators who face-to-face feel more rapport than those who conducted negotiation through the video conference or audio only. Because face-to-face negotiators were more likely to coordinate on a settlement early in the strike, resulting in higher joint change. Face-to-face negotiators trusted each other and were more successful at the coordinating their decision. Next effect of information technology on social behavior is paranoia. When we use information technology, we are left feeling uncertain about who we are talking to. Paranoid people are more likely to assume the worst about another person or situation. When we use information technology, we will talk to other people, but we do so alone. As a result, people who receive our message can be less social aware. So, the characteristic of computer-based communication make it easy for people to send a message that ignore the social boundary, disclose the self, and are too blunt. And the last one is intergenerational negotiation. Negotiation occur between the different generation because of a different norms of behavior. Younger generation have a grow up communicating with their friends and family member by using information technology, especially for the generation Z that know as a millennials that comfortable using information technology and their work prefer using information technology over the face-to-face interaction. That's all from me. Thank you very much.
Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. So when we talk about negotiations, it's not only success with face-to-face discussion, it is also helps by using technology information. Negotiators frequently do not have time to real face-to-face discussion, so here are strategies can be used. Here, I would like to make a differentiate. As we know, Gen Z was openly to visual users, but visual and face-to-face is a different comparable in negotiation. The effectiveness of visual and face-to-face was compared to visual do better on the brainstorming exercise, but face-to-face better on the negotiation exercise. Even though the face-to-face communicate better initially as visual gain experience, they communicate as openly and share information as effectively as face-to-face. For example, visual is only getting together at anywhere and anytime without confrontation with one another, but face-to-face interact directly and on time in face meet. We can see that face-to-face is more reliable and with higher trust to continue the negotiation when you can talk, hear, and see and give attention to empathy. Clearly, negotiators can be better form relationships after briefing initial face-to-face interaction, which is information via call or email that can minimize uncertainty and increase trust and help set up subsequent discussion and collaboration. Just now, we discussed about initial face-to-face using FaceMeet, and now I want to share how video or teleconference is working. Getting everyone together online is a good alternative if face-to-face meetings are not possible. So, a negotiator who had never met before was instructed to have a brief telephone conversation for confirmation only before beginning an email negotiation to discuss aspects of negotiation. The act of an early phone call can overcome some communication difficulties such as time uncertainty and feel more confident that future interactions will go smoothly. So, high quality sound or video are essential in negotiation seasons to make sure information was right. I would like to give a situation where the Russian and Ukraine met in first negotiations since Kremlin launched invention of its neighbor. Russia and Ukraine are far apart on the core issues, but they did agree to continue their talking. President Putin of Russia spoke on the phone with French President, which is Macron, and they two gave very different versions of what was discussed. Macron said he secured a promise from Putin not to attack civilian targets, but the Kremlin accused Ukraine nationalists of using civilians as human shield and said a peace settlement was possible only if Ukraine met Russia's demand, which remained demilitarization and neutrality from NATO, among others. So this shown that the video teleconference is not successful, which President Putin and President Macron give different information. That's how these two countries had a conflict now. Therefore, it is important to make confirmation before deal or negotiating. What is schmoozing? So, schmoozing is a talk informally with someone, especially in an insincere way, or to win some advantage for oneself or make social connections. Schmoozing enhances good relationships, which leads to more profitable business negotiations compared to who didn't schmooze on the phone before starting an in-negotiation business. An example of a situation is between a man and a woman. Nico sees a cute woman in a professional suit and a confident mood. So Nico started a conversation with her. Nico asked a few questions about her profession, the kind of project she's working on right now, because Nico's goal is to find out about herself, get her excited as well as give compliments, and exchange business cards as well as phone numbers. Then they maintain the conversation as much as possible and gain an edge. Just exchanging a few simple emails describing themselves can result in a better business relationship. Questions that show interest in the other party is the best way to find a point of similarity that can then uh, define the next exchange of information in negotiation. And the last strategy is humor. Humor is something that naturally joke things in negotiations for persuade someone, such as negotiation between employee and employer. Employee, I'd like to be paid what I'm worth. And the employee said, and I'd like to pay you what you are worth, but I can't because there are a minimum wage laws. So we can see in negotiations, the use of humor is important. The sooner a negotiator uses humor, the better. When start an email negotiation with comedy, surely we gain more trust and satisfaction. Sometimes people run business negotiations extremely stiff and sober, rarely joking or even smiling. But when using humor in negotiation, do it naturally, and the negotiator will get the benefits on negotiation. In conclusion, we know how the medium communication influences bargaining using the place-time model of social interaction, how information technology influences social behavior, and several methods for enhancing technology-mediated negotiation, including an initial face-to-face experience, video or teleconference, smoothing, and humor. With a rapport with a different type of people with different behavior, it's not easy as we think. But with the use of different method technology, it can success the negotiation. That's all for our group.